on the sideline, there's always the team physician, but at every home game, there's two unaffiliated neurological consultants, one for each team. Okay. And these are not employees of the team. They are independent. They are paid for their work that they do, but both of them have to come to the same decision about that player in terms of the diagnosis of concussion.
So you used to work on the sidelines of which team?
Back in the day, I did the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, the Eagles. Oh, okay. Very cool. And so you've been on that sidelines. Have you done NFL protocols, or were they in place when you were?
There were no, I did the Eagles and the Detroit Lions, and then there was no protocol back then, and the protocols have been around for several years, and they are always tweaked every year. uh, the medical staff do get together, they do discuss the protocols, they review the year, and they are adjusting it and adding whatever they feel is necessary to make it a better sensitive protocol.
So tell me, did you see the injury last night with his hands in front of his face? Tell me a little bit about you seeing that on TV, your takeaways from what happened.
So that indicates a neurological event happened. It's just by looking at it, it could have been a few different things that could have caused that. Brain injury is one, spinal injury is another, for example. So it's not 100% clear exactly what it represents. Some people may say it represents damage to a certain part of the brain. You can't always know that just from that view. That's where that exam comes in. Well, what I do want to point out is after the hit, the protocol was followed to a T. So they rushed out there. What they do in every emergency is you make sure the airway is clear, they can breathe. The next thing you do is secure the spine. And then once you do that, then you do your exam, and they decided that he needs to be stabilized. So they stabilize his neck, and then you transport him for further evaluation in the emergency room. They followed the protocol exactly as they should have. Everyone saying that he shouldn't have been in the game because of what happened 5 days earlier. uh, I can't address that. Nobody but the doctors know truly what went on in that and there is an investigation obviously from the players association, and let the investigation happen and let the truth come out, and if they followed the protocol, great. If they didn't, there's consequences.
Tell me about, heading into a Friday night. This is probably top of mind for a lot of people. What should a parent or coach be looking out for? I mean, obviously at a high school football game, you're not going to have these type of professionals on the field. But you have the same sort of injuries, the same sort of impact. So tell me a little bit about what the concerns are when it comes to high school football, and what people should look out for.
So in Texas, one of the kind of cool things about Texas, in many of the Texas high school games, there is an athletic trainer or a physician on the sideline, particularly for the larger schools. So there is typically a trained individual on the sideline. So what you're always looking for are any signs that might indicate that a concussion occurred. All right, and as you mentioned, stumbling after they get up. Okay, what they call posturing, or some people call it fencing. If you see any of that, that's serious indications that uh, that's a concussion, and typically they're called no-go signs. If you see those, it's a no-go. They're done. They're pulled. It's automatic concussion. Um, if they seem confused back in the huddle, if they forget the play, if they're out of position, these are things that a coach can see in a player. And there are at college and other certain levels, there are what they call concussion spotters, right? So these are people that their job on the field is, I'm looking for a concussion, and NFL has that with their what they call eye in the sky. There is a doctor sitting up in the video area, and that's their whole job. And they can stop play if they feel that there was a concussion. So there's a lot going on there. Um, if the it, high school student winces if they cover their eyes because the lights are too bright to them, these are all subtle signs. When they come off of the field, and let's say they continue to play, they come off the field, if they avoid coach or the athletic trainer, you need to go talk to them, and they need to be able to answer your questions crisp and sharp, and kind of be aware. You can ask them about what plays were they just doing. Little things like that are often signs. One of the things I do want to mention that we are seeing is, I've been in this business 20 years of sports concussions, and I think one of the most interesting and best things that we're seeing now is a little bit of a cultural shift. Kids nowadays, college pros, will voluntarily start to report these symptoms. So the old cliche or the old stereotype of they're going to hide it. That still happens, but many times we'll have kids come off the sideline, say, "Hey, coach, I don't feel right. I have a headache, or I feel a little dizzy." And that's a big shift, and I think that's helping to bring down those numbers in terms of concussions.
What is a concussion? Just for people who don't know, what is a concussion?
A concussion is an injury to the brain caused by a mechanical force, or blunt injury to the head, or even sometimes just to the body. And it tends to cause a metabolic disruption in brain functioning because of movement of the brain inside of the skull.
And can a concussion hide its, like, I don't know, I know this isn't the right way, but can it hide itself, or will it always eventually be seen?
It can hide itself, and this is the problem. This is the holy grail of concussion is to find that marker of concussion. It would be great if a player could spit into a cup and we could measure the concussion. They're trying that. They're actually are working on things like that. But the problem is, right now, these mild traumatic brain injuries, these mild concussions, or concussions of mild traumatic brain injuries, is symptom based right now. Sometimes you see it, so when they get up, if they stumble, if they're knocked unconscious, but most of the time it's symptom reporting. And typically what we do see, if they do try to hide it, and they, for example, they continue to play, what you'll see is that those symptoms will get worse, and to the point that their headache is so bad they can't play, or they can't function very well in school. And that's the message that we try to express to high school students. For example, the most vulnerable population is, it's best to come out sooner. When an athlete immediately removes themselves after concussions versus someone who continues to play, the player who continues to play is more likely to take longer to recover. Some of the research suggests twice as long. So if you really want to get back into the game, it's best to come out. We treat the concussions. We have better techniques for treating concussions to get them back safely.
And so, because another question is for parents when they take their kid home at night and maybe a concussion did go overlooked, what should parents at home that night be looking for? Like, is there some sort of like regular check a parent can do every Friday night when their kid comes home? What would you say to a parent?
Um, there, if a parent suspects a concussion, and if it was spotted on the field, then the coach, the athletic trainer, the doctor should have information for that parent of things to look for. These what we call red flags. Um, if that didn't happen, then the parent, for example, the Center for Disease Control has something called Heads Up Football. They have a ton of information directly relevant for a parent in this type of situation. You're looking for headache, you're looking for dizziness, slowed speech, mental fogginess, irritability, more so than your teenager typically might have, stiff neck that to the point that they can't move, unequal pupil sizes. When these symptoms get worse over time, that is when we typically recommend that you should be evaluated in urgent care or an emergency room. And the doctor will determine if brain imaging needs to be done. I always leave it to the emergency room doctor to make that decision. But there are these what we call red flags or things to look for. Typically, we observe them for a few hours, i.e., 3, 4 hours. And then at that point, they're going to be very tired, very fatigued, and they're going to want to sleep. We always recommend hydrating them, because they particularly if like they just got done playing football, force them to drink a little bit. If they want to eat, that's fine. And then we tend to let them sleep. We no longer wake them up in the middle of the night.